Hi, this is Jen, and thanks for joining me. Today I am creating 3 cards using one stamp set and one embossing powder. So the stamp set that I'm using for all 3 cards is by the Stamp Market. I believe it's called some kind of wonderful, but I will put the definite name in links below. I am also using this Wow white pearl embossing powder on all of my cards. All of the card bases for the cards are using Bristol Smooth cardstock. So for this first card, I go ahead and take my embossing bag and get the panel ready to receive the embossing ink. And I am taking this Altenew Splatter stencil, and that's what I'll be using for this first card. And my new favorite product, this has probably been out for a while, I'm sure, but I absolutely love it, is this dauber. And it's just got embossing ink in it. I absolutely love it. And I don't know if they have a spray, but I think that would be kind of cool to have the embossing ink in a spray. I don't know if I can get the top off of this and put it in a spray bottle. I might try that. But it's kind of cool. I like it because it gives you a lot of control over where you want the embossing ink to go. Of course, you can use your embossing stamp pad or an embossing pen if that's what you have. But I just love this dauber so much. So I'm going to go ahead and spread the embossing powder on my panel, and I'll go ahead and heat that up. And then I'm going to take the panel and put it in my We Are Memory Keepers a stamp positioner tool. And I will go ahead and take my embossing bag and embossing powder bag. I never think of what that thing is called. I think it's an embossing bag. And go over my panel again. And then I will ink up this image, which is actually, it's a good sized image. It takes up most of the card. So it fills the card very nicely. And then I'm going to go ahead and take the embossing powder and go over that, and I will heat set that. And this card is very light. Actually, all of the cards are very light, probably except for the last one. And I didn't want to do the embossing powder on black because it kind of turns it into a silver, and this does look kind of silver, but it's not like on white. It just looks really kind of like an ivory or like a white pearl, which is what the name of it is. So next I'm taking my blending tool, and I am using just a regular distress ink in Squeezed Lemonade, I believe. And then for this one, I am taking an Altenew stamp set called Something Wonderful, and a Catherine Pooler, I believe I used Limoncello to ink up that sentiment. And because there's embossing on the card, it's a little more difficult to get that ink set down. And then I use a die from my stash and adhere that to a white card base, and that completes that card. For this next card, I am using a Garden Patina by Wendy Vecchi Make Art blendable ink, and I'm again using my blending tool. So I put that on my card base, and then I'm going to take the stencil. And I forgot a very important step here. I forgot to use my embossing bag. And so I get powder stuck to everything. So here I had just inked it up, and when you do it without using the embossing bag, it does this. So I had powder all over my card, but I didn't trash it. I just went ahead and I grabbed one of the brushes that I use to wipe off embossing powder, and I didn't want it all gone, so I just, as you can see, there's a lot on it, and so I just kind of randomly pushed some of that powder off, and I went ahead and heated that up, and it turned out fine. There's some areas that it kind of looks almost not like glitter, but it just looks like a fine sheen of embossing powder, which is fine with me. And then I'm going to take that same stamp set, and I do remember to use my embossing bag this time. So I'm going to ink that up with my Versamark. And again, I'll put the embossing powder on the flower and heat that up. And then for this card, I color it using some Tombow markers in kind of a gray color and purple. So just 2 markers. And then I spread that with my water pen. And then the sentiment for this card is, or actually I used a Pink Fresh Studio die set. I believe it's the diagonal something or other. As I will have products links linked below, along with a printable product list if you're interested in that. It's just a Google Doc. All you have to do is click on it and it'll take you to the document where you can save it, or you can print it, or you can actually click on the links in the document. So I went ahead and colored up that flower, and then here is the die set. I went ahead and used 2 dies and cut this, or actually 3 dies, and cut this into 3 pieces. And I'm using my Finetech glue, which has a really nice applicator for doing a detail work. I absolutely love it. So the next little frame piece is just a white piece. So it's basically the other side of the embossed portion. I flipped it over to make it so I used the white, just the plain white piece. And then the centerpiece I popped up with some foam tape, some double-sided foam tape. But the sentiment I used for this card is a die cut that's hello, and this is a Catherine Pooler die. And so I cut it out a piece of white cardstock, and I used the garden patina to kind of go around the edges, and then I used the embossing powder on top of that. I found it easier. I used a piece of fun foam from Walmart. It's only adhesive on one side. I found it easier to leave the die in the foam and adhere it that way rather than take it out, because you know that fun foam, it gets all wonky and it stretches, and so it was just way easier to leave it in the foam until I had that paper piece adhered to the top. And then this will finish off the card. I do take some white, or not white, black Nouveau Crystal Drops in Ebony, and I water it down and use some splatter on the card. And that finishes off that card. So for this next card, I am using several Tombow markers, and all I'm doing is kind of scribbling on the Bristol cardstock. And then I will take my water brush and spread the color. And then I end up kind of getting the blue color. I got a little happy with my marker, I guess, and it went woo right there. So I don't end up using that portion, which this panel is bigger than 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So I had enough room on the other side for the flower. So after I get all the ink spread across, I take my heat gun to heat, kind of speed up the drying process. And then I will take my embossing back because I am embossing the flower again. And when I first did this, it was very, very light. Like the colors, I think because they're stripes, it made it really hard to see really the detail of the embossed flower. So what I end up doing is taking a Catherine Pooler ink and my blending tool and going over that flower to kind of bring out the details a little bit more. I fussy cut the edges And then for the middle portions where there is no paper, where the branches are, I went ahead and took my little hand cutting tool to cut those out, which was a lot easier because usually I am not very good at getting straight lines, but I have to say the blade I have was new and it was so easy to cut that image out, so easy that I think I'm going to try this project that I've been wanting to try with paper, because I'm so confident I can do it now. So I'm using a black frame for this card, and I went ahead and I just set it on the card panel, or the card base, I believe, so that I could have a guide for my words. And so I'm just inking that up with some VersaFine Nocturne ink. And then after that has dried, I will go ahead and I do take an eraser to get rid of that line. And I use this red double-sided adhesive for this frame. It kind of made the frame bend slightly. Phone's ringing. So since the frame was kind of bendy, I guess you could say, the cardstock wasn't really heavy. It's probably like a 65-pound or something. I just adhered part of it, so I wouldn't have to totally commit to the frame adhering to the card. I took some package plasticking, some plastic packaging, and adhered half of the die, so the top half, because the bottom half. It was a little bit easier for me to position it. That's what I'm trying to say. It was very helpful in helping me to get the frame on fairly straight, although there is a slight curve on the right side. I did trim off a little on the side to make it a little more even, and then I took some glitter glue and attached that flower, and I also do the black splatter on this card also. And that will complete the card set I created. I hope you enjoyed this video. I really love making these videos, and so I hope you enjoy watching them. If you liked this video or found it informative, please go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed, please go ahead, and you would like to, please go ahead and hit that red subscribe button. If you then go ahead and hit the bell, it will email you when I post new videos. So I guess that's it for me. Have a wonderful day, and I will catch you next time.